Welcome to Invocation 2023. So this particular session is part of something what we call as convention series, where we talk about various aspects, topics, actions, words of Sri Aurobindo. And today the theme of the topic is economy and united India. In general, Invocation is, as I said, about Sri Aurobindo's commemoration of his birth anniversary, and we use this 15 days, 1 week before Sri Aurobindo's birthday, that is starting from the 8th, and then Sri Aurobindo's birthday, and 1 week after. We use these 15 days to invoke him through various words, works of him. And in this context, every year we only apply one dream. He wrote about 5 dreams of 5 dreams for New India on 15th of August 1947. Based on that, inspired by that, we use as a theme for the entire invocation each year one dream. So this year the theme of the of Invocation 2023 is United India. I would like to read that dream before we begin the conversation. Today, to join the conversation, we have Pashiji and Torkil. Pashiji came to Ashram for a brief visit in April 1968 when he first met the mother, and this became the turning point of his life. He joined Auroville in 1972 and worked at Aurofuture with Roger and others. He initiated a trust for the benefit of Auroville named Auroservice the Auroville, which negotiated and executed many town planning and development projects all over India. At 91, he is the co-coordinator of Project CIRHU, the second most important project after Matrimandir on behalf of Auroville Town Development Council. And we have Torkil. Torkil Dantzer is from Denmark. He's a mathematician and economist by education. He has worked in economic and social development in many countries in Asia and Africa. One such large project in Tamil Nadu brought him close to Auroville, and he settled here 12 years ago. He started a design and furniture unit in Auroville, and his main interests are philosophy, spirituality, economic history, and design. So, as I said about the first dream, I would like to read out the first dream of Sri Aurobindo, and from there I will invite Torkil and Pashiji to give their talk. The first of these dreams was a revolutionary movement which would create a free and united India. India today is free, but she has not achieved unity. At one moment, it almost seemed as if in the very act of liberation, she would fall back into the chaos of separate states which preceded the British conquest. But fortunately, it now seems probable that this danger will be averted and a large and powerful, though not yet a complete union will be established. Also, the wisely drastic policy of Constituent Assembly has made it probable that the problem of the depressed classes will be solved without schism or fissure. But the old communal division into Hindus and Muslims seems now to have hardened into a permanent political division of the country. It is to be hoped that this settled fact will not be accepted or as settled forever, or as anything more than a temporary expedient. For if it lasts, India may be seriously weakened, even crippled. Civil strife may remain always possible even a new invasion and foreign conquest. India's internal development and prosperity may be impeded, her position among the nations weakened, her destiny impaired or even frustrated. This must not be. The partition must go. Let us hope that that may come about naturally by an increasing recognition of the necessity not only of peace and concord but of common action. By the practice of common action and the creation of means for that purpose, in this way unity may finally come about under whatever form. The exact form may have a pragmatic but not a fundamental importance. But by whatever means, in whatever way the division must go, unity must and will be achieved, for it is necessary for the greatness of India's future. Now, it is in this regard, for the greatness of India's future, I would like you to give your thoughts, how economic aspects may help us with this common action, and also creation of the means for that purpose that he talks about. Pashiji, if I may begin with you.
One of the key words in Sri Aurobindo's talk on 15th of August 1947 is partition must go. When you look at the present political situation of what is happening, most of our neighbor countries and also those who separated from India are economically struggling to an extent that the citizens are revolting in one form or the other, and they want to come back and become part of India in one form or the other. The recent occasion I can mention to you is on 15th of August, 10 kilometers deep inside Pakistan, Indian flag was flying in Balochistan, in POK, and they were asking to join India. Sri Aurobindo's prophecy, according to me, may not get fulfilled in the same way as India was before. But I have no doubt whatsoever that with India's economy today is, if not at the world level, it is an example of a GDP growth of between 6.7 to 7.2% and expected to rise to close to 8% in the next few years, where the rest of the world is going into more and more recession and depression. And this is in spite of not being united at the moment. When that unity comes, according to me, I think Sri Aurobindo's prediction will be realized not too far away. Thank you.
Partition is always a problem, and having different ideologies, different religions are always a problem. As an economist, I'm quite sure that economic collaboration is a way to get out of these things, because if the focus is only on differences, it can be very difficult. If you go into economic collaboration, the focus will be different, and also you could say the sacrifice if you go into much ideology will be too high. So economic development is a way to unite people in a kind of smoother way. That said, I come from the economic development world of development countries, and I would just like to say a few things about, you can hear me or I have to be closer, is that all countries somehow go through the same steps. Each sector goes through the same steps, it has the same problems, it has the same challenges. Even India will have the same challenges as any other country, and even Auroville, even if it's a microeconomy, will actually have the same dynamic and challenges. So I'll just go through them very, very simple as a development economist see them. Most countries come from being a farming country. Nearly all countries, even the country I come from, Denmark, was a farming country 75 years ago, where more than half of the population were into farming. So economic development is not only about resources and building factories, it's a socio-economic development. It changes the people's minds. And that's why it is so damn difficult. It was only to build roads and factories and resources, it would be pretty easy, but it's much more complex than that. And that means it's very difficult to to go faster to a development or jump a development. Because it's not about going from point A to point B, because most countries, or even India, knows where you should go in 10 years. But it's not that simple, because all the journeys you have to go through is very, very important. It's not the goal in itself that it's important, it's all the changes that has to happen. If you want to take farmers from a farming community and turn them into city dwellers and have them to work in a service or any other thing, it needs a totally change of mindset. And that makes it so complex. So in this world of economy, there was actually two systems. There was a kind of very planned way of doing development, which was mainly taken up by the communist side, which actually was Russia, and to a certain degree for some years India and China. And then there was a kind of market economy where you say you cannot control all these parameters, and you try to control as much as you can, but you let the market economy, whatever it does, take care of all the micro decisions. And I'm not to judge that. As a kind of mathematician, I have a lot of love for the planned economy, and I must say the Russians did a huge try, I must say, and then in many years in the 60s, they were ahead in IT, they were ahead in mathematics, because they needed that. Because to solve even a small-scale economy by planning is a huge, tremendous task. Mathematically, it can be solved. Computers were behind, they could not solve it, because it is actually to solve an equation with thousands of parameters that change all the time. So it's damn difficult. It's not that part of it that is difficult. The main part is that you can't get the right data. Data is always very diffuse, and any mathematical model will collapse if it doesn't get the data. Now I'm getting too far out in it. But each sector then in development has its own challenges. All countries start actually with education, which is the easiest one, because education is always seen as a must need to have any economic development. You have to educate your population, they have to get knowledge to get the development going. And everybody supports schools, so that's the first step all countries go into. And that has their own challenge, because it takes a hell of a lot of time. It's easy enough to get funds to build schools and colleges and institutions, but the problem is the contents of the school is challenging, because any country don't have enough teachers, they don't have enough qualified teachers. It actually takes two generations to educate enough teachers that you can actually start educating on a high level. Most countries go through that development quite well. The next problem is that you often educate way too many, and you educate not the right ones. So in many countries like India, it's easier to get a good IT person than to get a good plumber. And it's not fun. It's actually like that, because all countries don't focus on vocational training. They focus on university academics. They have too many of them. They go out because they have no jobs in the country they are educated. So they becomes a drained brain. So that's an easy part of a development, the educational system. The next part of that is construction, because most countries takes off in doing construction. There's a huge need in any development countries to build roads, schools, factories, infrastructure. So construction takes off, and that's a pretty easy thing to do in a way, because that can be planned, and if you have good economists, you have good technicians, it can be done. It's challenging to get the right quality for any country, to get all the new materials, all the knowledge, and if you don't have the vocational training, you will have workers which don't have the knowledge. But it comes, most countries comes. The main challenge there is, like all economy, is how to dismantle it again, because it's easy when you start, because most development countries, 30% of their economy will be construction. And how it goes well in the beginning, because you need a hell of a lot of schools, railways and things, so it's quite easy. But eventually you will get full, and you have to dismantle that system. And that has for many countries been very difficult. Japan actually collapsed in that transition, how to dismantle a construction sector who just want to continue. China is just at the point of collapsing there, where they have a huge construction sector which they can't dismantle. India is not there yet. They are still in the phase where they are building up a construction sector that can handle, because there's still a huge need in India for infrastructure. The most difficult sector to handle is farming, because all countries start with having 50% of their people into farming. And how to dismantle that sector and turn these people into other focus is very difficult. And I haven't seen a very good example of that. The main example is basically that you industrialize the farming, you get it into mechanizing, it gets much cheaper, food gets available. But farming as such collapses, and there's no farm economy that is actually sustainable. All farm economies are actually subsidized and are highly planned economies because they don't function on market economies. So trying to get these into India is one thing that I can tell you that for farming, India had never really touched it because it seems to be politically a very difficult subject to touch. So it will be a challenge for India to find out what they want to do with farming. If I take these things into what Auroville has, it is that we also had a focus on the education sector and build that up, of course only until 12th grade. As any other country, we did not have much focus on vocational training, so we followed exactly the same trend. Right now we stand with an education sector which is extremely expensive to run, so I must say we are not much better than most development countries in that respect. For construction sector, we had this big challenge that we have tried to finance anything from donations. And that means we have never been able to make a proactive building of anything. Any residential building has been put together by people who want to put their money into it, and when that was settled, you build it. So you had never found a proactive way to build buildings for the need that will come. So you're always behind, and that has probably been one of the main reasons why Auroville could not develop, because the main challenge for anybody who wants to come to Auroville is to find a place to live. So that is a challenge Auroville never have really tried to. We are trying right now to find another system where we could proactively build a number of houses, let's say 300 houses, find a way to finance it, find a way that it becomes part of prosperity in a way, because that's the only way you can say, dynamize the way that people can come to Auroville. I think I get too far out. I think I have let Pashiji to say something also.
He wants to add. Yes.
In the context of what Torkil has said, I want to share two things with you. As far as the world economy is concerned and the position of India in that sense of the economy, I think the second dream of Sri Aurobindo is also a relevant one, where Asia is rising and its economies are also going from developing to developed economies. When we talk about Auroville, that is his fifth dream. In late 60s and early 70s, when mother was directly involved with development of Auroville, she was fully aware of the fact that a city cannot be built on charity alone. She was very clear that large sums of money were required. And recently, Paulette has published a lot of historical documents from which you can see the efforts being made at United Nations, at Ford Foundation and various other aspects and all that. And one of the aspects that came up at that time in context of Auroville was a corporation registered in Paris that will raise bonds for 25 years. Her intention was that the city will be built in 5 years. Roger said, "Mother, it's not possible, so give me some more time." So she says, "All right, take 10. Okay. 15 years to build up the economy, to buy back what people invested and give them profit as well. When Roger was actually appointed chief architect, and mother gave the planning department the name Lavinia de Auroville, Auroville's future, she made it sure that Roger understands it's the responsibility of not only planning and development, but also raising funds. It was not to be mixed up with the economy of Auroville. Auroville's economy in that context was based on what she called prosperity. Now the prosperity had to be supported by revenue generation from the revenue activities, not based on donations and charities and so on and so forth. Some or the other, we have not really, I'm bringing back Auroville's core issue into this because it has also relevance to India and many other countries, because Auroville has been created as an experimental township where the individual is not only seeking knowledge, experimenting, but he is the subject and the object at the same time. It is a very interesting aspect, and when she was writing the charter, she made just one condition. To live in Auroville, one must be a willing servitor of the divine consciousness. We have ignored this aspect completely. I remember in the 70s we used to joke about it. Auroville belongs to nobody in particular, therefore it belongs to me. Today it is a fact. We have totally disregarded the purpose of Auroville. It's about time that we need to realign ourselves in context of Auroville, in terms of the mother. And in this context, I want to say something on the economic front. My friend here, for years he's been working on various fundamental issues that relate to Auroville, and I have his papers. I respect for all that he has done. Chandresh, he's worked on it. There are many other people who have worked on it. I, as part of the Lavinia Auroville, as well as part of certain other groups, have been working constantly on it. What has been happening in Auroville is we reach a certain point, we have all the thoughts of reverting back to the original vision, but somewhere it remains at intellectual level, never finds an active operation. Second aspect that I want to draw attention of my friend Torkil and others also, that vocational training that he talks about. I'm a product of that vocational training myself as an engineer. The only thing, it happened in England and not here. From the first master plan of 1967, which was a concept and also a basic design for Auroville, there were two names that came up at that time and planned allocation made on the planned area at that time. One was what was called Engineering College, and second was what was called the University of Peace. Both of these, because the university's meaning being very limited, mother was not very happy with it, so the meanings changed. One became vocational institution, another one became Center of International Research in Human Unity. Both have been discussed, but not either one of them has found actually a manifestation in physical. So when we talk about the economy in the country itself, because I'm one of those who was known in 1947 as a refugee. So I'm victim of that partition. But I was very proud because on 15th of August, I was in Delhi to see the national flag furling on the Red Fort. So for me, Indian politics has been part of my family's blood. I have watched leaders from very close quarters. There has been a certain give and take. There has been more give rather than take by one side of it. The other day when the partition thing was inaugurated, there were some pictures and all that, and I can tell you politically who ruined the whole project and partition came. Instrument was Liaquat Ali Khan at the instance of Jinnah. The British helped. Okay, politically, British had an interest in India remaining divided. Economically, I think I agree with it that if you create institutions, especially of educational institutions and things like that, that does eventually start bearing fruits. So IITs in education was one of the attempts earlier, damming the water, rivers, and so on and so forth, another activity of this, setting up also industrial activities. And true, this was the basic things needed, but then it needed the human resources with the right kind of an attitude. And that is when, that typically when given to ourselves, not having been used to responsibility, corruption crept in. And that corruption did not allow us to grow at the level that we should have grown. And India became a laughingstock of the world by being called a growth at Brahminical level.
Hindu
Growth rate. Today, it is a Kshatriya growth rate. Now, I would say that if this continues, India will set up an example of those who separated from us to come with us, join hands, so that jointly this can become a shining example of a different kind of an economy. And lately what has been talked about is a beautiful idea. Mother used to talk about 10% being the maximum tax for India, and it would give it sufficient scope to improve. A new idea has come up, which is very interesting, and it's being discussed now seriously, that there'll be no taxes anymore in India, except 1% extra charge on any expenditure that you make. You buy something for 100 rupees, you just pay 1 rupee to the government to run its own affairs. Some will have to do the calculations because I haven't a clue as to how much money Indian citizens spend on buying things, but it can be a huge sum of money. So frankly, ideas are emerging. Similarly, ideas have been there in Auroville also to go back to what the mother's vision was in terms of the economy and revenue generation and so on and so forth. And I have personally been involved in some of these activities. In 2012, there was a group formed, recognized by the FAMC as well as Lavanya Auroville at that time, to look at the possibility of developing the lands outside Auroville's plan, which were purchased at one time with the idea that Auroville will be located there, 1,100 acres of it. A professional organization was engaged. Each and every plot was studied under SWOT analysis. Report was paid for by Lavanier's Auroville, presented both to the FAMC and Lavanier. It is gathering dust. One of the most beautiful studies that ever made on the possibilities of how we can raise the revenue. Similarly, Torkil has been working on it. I have 2 of his papers. Chandresh has been working it. Number of other groups have been working it. In 2018, a new group was formed where I was part of it, called Exploring Prosperity, where we looked at all these proposals and we decided to work on what is a practical structure that can give it the possibility to manifest. For your information, the first trust that was created in Auroville, I am the culprit. Auroservice, the Auroville, was created by me to support survival of Auroville in 1974 when the society had drawn back the financial support to us. And thanks to Roger's collaboration, we were able to take the work from outside to plan cities and plan various other things. And I can say it very proudly that 2 of the cities we planned are functional cities today. We have not been able to have a functional city of 50,000 of Auroville in 55 years, whilst in 5 years, 2 cities were realized. From 1974 to 1979, both cities are functional today. As he rightly pointed out, because in spite of our goodwill and intentions and so on and so forth, where we failed was to create that basic financial support that requires the city to build uninterrupted. Today, and in those Pollitt's papers you will find also the mention that both the government of India and the government of Tamil Nadu have to be on board. Today we have the government of India on board. But some or the other, we have lost the government of Tamil Nadu. Okay. If we can bring them together, we have the master plan. We do not have the land use permission. We do not have enough money even to buy the land that we need, even within the city, to build a city. We do not have enough money even to support workers, because we are all workers. What we call prosperity or whichever. We have therefore, between mothers passing away and with the foundation coming in, we have created a kind of a survival where being here became so important that we adopted fair and foul means to remain here. And today, I can say it very candidly that we are as corrupt as the rest of the society. We need to rethink, according to me, to see how best we can collectively put our heads together once again, irrespective of what today's administration is saying or wanting to say or wanting to do. How to come together. We talk about Auroville being a project of human unity. We don't even understand human unity ourselves. We have become preachers who do not practice. We tell the entire world how beautiful our preaching is. But when it comes to practice, we are the ones who shy away from it all the time. So all I'm trying to say is that if we have this platform to use, and if we have a message to give, I would like to say, come together, let's talk about how we can reorganize ourselves. And I am the one, because being a coordinator of Center of International Research and Human Unity, offer you the platform to come together. Let's share ourselves, irrespective of what everybody else is, and come to concrete decisions in context of Auroville, trusts are no longer necessary. We have to have institutional verticals. According to me, two verticals are the most important one. One is what I call the prosperity, which takes care of all the needs of the participants in Auroville. And second is what I call the revenue generation. I have given it a name, Auroville Udyog. These two verticals are the most essential one, and the many taxes, GST and various other aspects that come into play, all can be avoided if we look at the structure that we create, and we become focal point of actually sharing everything we need. I can tell you from my personal experience in building materials, there are discounts available from 15% on cement to 53% on various other products that go into the product. And I have written offers. In food items, you can get any discounts up to 45%. In medicines, you can get discounts up to 30%, and I'm enjoying them. What economy are we talking about? We are just going begging money for people, but we do not practice what we talk about. There are 101 possibilities of generating our own resources, which we don't. And these papers, which are available and I'm willing to share with everyone, have wonderful suggestions. Because a certain amount of planning is absolutely necessary. And Chandresh called it strategic planning group. Both Torkil and Chandresh are today part of FMC. Why are not they taking it up? My challenge. Take it up. Let's come together on these issues rather than blah, blah, blah all the time and telling other people administratively how they have to behave. I'm angry because 55 years of my life I've given to Auroville. And I find we just talk and talk and talk. We don't even understand one word about what is called discipline. Mother said at one time in 1970, discipline is required at individual level, discipline is required at collective level, discipline is required at every level. We are in a construction phase. Those who cannot be disciplined can come later. Then Roger drafted something out, again in 70, which he approved, which meant the same thing. Stop talking, she said, to engineers and architects. Get down with the work. We have never ever seriously listened to her. And those who want to work, we only create problems for them. She said, work minimum 5 hours a day throughout the year because we eat every day. We don't stop. 3 meals a day, even on Sunday and Saturday. Do we really work 5 hours a day? For this collective objectives that she's laid out to build the city, to build the economy, to build the agroforestry, to educate our children? No. We have only followed the easy way out like retired soldiers. We're doing exactly what the rest of the world is doing. And we call it an experiment. It is a nonsense that we talk about. I'm sorry, I have to speak in these terms because we have all the knowledge, we have all the possibilities, we're intelligent enough, we have chosen to be here. And yet we are playing the game because it is so deeper in our DNAs that we cannot get rid of it. For me, I think if this phase that we are going through is an indicator that it's about time that we stopped talking and proving to the world that what we are, let's get down to the brass tacks and correct ourselves and become true soldiers in the spirit of the one willing servitor of the divine consciousness. It will come to us if we delve on it.
Yes.
Another thing I want to share with you as Aurovillians, when in 67 the city was conceived, the idea of center was totally different. Idea of Matrimandir came a little later. Reasons I will not discuss at the moment, but I know the reasons. But therefore, Matrimandir foundation stone was laid in 1971. Matrimandir is a three-dimensional replica of the book that Sri Aurobindo wrote in early 30s called The Mother. It's a reference point for Aurovillians to reflect, behave, and to become willing servitors. What is it today? A tourist center. Even our planning is taking tourists into account. When we talk about one of the major developments of Auroville, it has tourists in mind and their convenience. Come on, where are we going?
Yeah.
So for me, today I'm my self-critic and I'm a critic because I'm angry. And you have given me the platform to express myself. Thank you very much. But any more, if Torkil has more practical suggestions, I'll go along with him. But I am here to share with you, let's come together, let's work on specific. We are intelligent people, we are capable people, we have the capacities. Individually, we have been successful.
Yes.
Why cannot we be collectively successful? I have been head of two organizations, engineering organizations, before I came to Auroville. One was international company, second was an Indian company. In both of these companies, we were able to achieve our targets because there was a certain discipline.
Yes.
For God's sake, let's not be free-wheeler dealers. We have to commit ourselves to Auroville.
Right.
Thank you.
You might have read about Angry Young Man. Now you have seen him.
He's still an angry young man.
Yeah. And all for valid reasons, I guess. No, I mean, I think in some form, we all have come to Auroville, like you said, we all have taken the decision to be here. And yet when we see the same old being repeated, of course it stirs some emotion. And that too after 55 years. So it's fairly understandable. What I have done is, I mean, both our speakers have kind of walked a very wide spectrum from global idea to Auroville. So I would like to go in that sense, in that trajectory from far to near. If we may look at the global trend, if I have to, you referred to a little bit on India being at the 7% GDP growth rate, which is phenomenal. But then again, aren't we looking at it from a very Western point of view, the economy, the way we even gauge the economy, the grammar is very Western. So I would like to look at what you said right now because we are talking about economy here, can we have a x-axis, y-axis, and even perhaps a z-axis? X-axis being, say, the time. How do we look at economy from the lens of the past and see what we are doing today? And if we can extrapolate where we will be leading and how we can be any different towards our progress. And the second aspect is the space. So as I said, this West and the East, Eastern ideas, even in the economy, it kind of manifested in a different way. And the Western economy developed in a different way. However, now predominantly the world follows a Western model. So is there anything that we can learn from the x-axis, which is the time, which educates us, which informs us how we can be any different in the space, how we can take the Eastern ideas also a little bit in front? 200 years ago, by 18, correct me if I'm wrong, 1800s, India and China were 25 and 24% of the world GDP, respectively. In 200 years, by 19 something, we were reduced to 2% of the world economy. We are recovering. Perhaps we are right now at 5-6% of the world economy, and China is perhaps 15%. But together, we are still, say, 20%. We are not 50%. And you also alluded to this Asian resurgence, Sri Aurobindo's second dream. How can, say, there are 50 countries in Asia versus the Western, which is Europe, 50 countries, versus Americas, which is 50 countries, and then there is Africa, there are 50 countries, put together, say, 200 countries roughly. So if these are the large ideas, the West and the East, so what can we, Africa is emerging in a huge way. So can this Western Indian model be of use for world prosperity? So if you may a little bit touch upon this, Torkil, how do you look at it from a macro point of view, the economy? And are we trying to put some band-aids on things which are fundamentally, inherently wrong? And thus we are not able to see, and thus adds to the frustration. The economy is, the word in itself, if you may look at the definition of economy, which looks at how do we save, how do we economize. It's not abundance. It's not what you said, prosperity. The definition in itself is very different. I think Indian economy prospered on abundance. Hence, we could splurge on temples and literature and ethics and aesthetics and scientific advancements, say, 1,000 years ago. How do we go back to abundance, away from economy?
Economic development, I think I'll divide in two phases. One phase is to get to what we in Auroville would call prosperity, which is trying to get at least a means that people can have a decent life. I think that kind of phase is very similar because the tools are the same. I haven't seen any other development like that. But how to handle economy from that phase is very different. Because the economic development model we have right now normally creates a huge amount of inequality. And how do you politically handle that? And what do you do when you could say the growth has been enough? What is the next step? And that's a big step for the whole world today, that economists have somehow been the kings of the last century. They have created this, you could say, a fantastic economic development, which has been positive to a certain extent. But economists are only a good servant. They are not a good master. And how do economists step down? I'm an economist, so it's maybe time I'm a bit humble. And I just want to phrase one of the most influential economists, which is John Maynard Keynes, who created the economic tools we all actually, any country in the world, neither if it's communist or purely capitalist, they use the same Keynesian tools. And when he created these tools in the 1930s, which was a big catastrophe of the world, the first real crash in 29, where all economies in the world crashed. It took years to get out of it. There were millions of billions of people in poverty. He created these tools, and he was also the first to say that this you should not do more than 100 years, because in the end it has no meaning. Growth has only meaning to get to a point where the basic needs are covered. The real values in lives are art, literature, spirituality, and things like that. It's not consumer goods. So he said in 1933, 100 years maximum. And he was also the first to say that economists should be much more humble. He actually said that economists should be like a dentist. It's a person you go to when you have a problem. And somehow we have to find a way to dismantle the economist's rule and find another purpose. And I think the purpose is to see that your basic needs are covered and the real meanings of life are something else. And that's where maybe Auroville has its role, because that's the whole idea of Auroville is what we call prosperity. It's a beautiful and simple life, and that's where the value should come. And that's where I think Auroville has a huge mission. If we could somehow create a prosperous Auroville where the prosperity and the basic needs are covered for people who are here, and there's a functioning economy, and show that as a model that is enough, and you can actually refocus the real values of life, which is something very different than getting a new TV or getting a new car or anything like that.
Right. You aptly put it, and I think the operating word is need. And I think the Keynesian model that you referred to exploits the word want. And I think that's also, perhaps we can look at these two polarities as want versus need. The economy based on demand and supply, production, distribution and consumption to serve unlimited wants. The growth, the whole growth, the romanticism around growth in itself is based on people wanting more, wanting extra. So how do we, Auroville mother, like you said, being a willing servitor and prosperity being available for everyone, how do we start from the, fundamentally, that's what you actually nailed it there. How do we go from want to need?
You can't sidestep things. I think Pashi said it very clearly also that Auroville have actually avoided economic development. So we don't have the means to what we want to do. So it's difficult to create a model town here without having the economy to finance it. So, and I think to a certain degree that in a simple explanation of integral yoga is that you should be able to handle all things in life, not by staying away from it, but by trying to make sure that it doesn't control you. And Auroville, to a certain degree, have shied away for anything that has to do with money. And how can you then have an economic development? It's simply not possible. And the joke, as amongst economists in Auroville, is that this phrase we have in Auroville that there should be no economic transactions or money transactions in Auroville, we have totally misunderstood it, because actually we have full monetary transaction. Financial service system is a monetary transaction. There might not be cash, that's another thing, but it's a monetary transactions. We have a lot of funds, which is finances. They are totally frozen, they are not moving. If the mother has been here, she had looked at all these available funds lying somewhere, and she had put them into action. Because money is an energy. If you don't release the energy, you cannot grow anything. And just looking at transactions is a very blind-sighted thing to do. So I think Auroville has to realize that money is needed. Because in our development, I came here as an economist, I must say it's not been the easiest place to work as economist or development person at all, because there have basically been no interest in development. And most other countries I worked in, you did not question that you want economic development. You said, okay, but how can you do it? There could be questions, what should be done, but not why. And that's a very difficult question. I don't know if Pashi wants to.
I want to share a personal experience with you. After mother's passing away, society had withdrawn their financial support to Auroville, but not fully. So I was approached by one of the society's emissaries if I will accept prosperity from society. And I said, yes, provided you feel responsible to the mother. No prosperity. We had recently formed at that time Portus for all. Would you accept the basket from us? My answer was the same. Yes, if you feel responsible to the mother. No basket either. It's the same situation today. For me, I mean, what I want to show you in this presentation of prosperity is a practical idea of how to deal with it. But at the same time, to support this scheme of things, you see, he had, even earlier, he had worked out certain possibilities over a period with inflation being taken into account and all that. What are the amounts of money required? What are the population growth and so on and so forth. In this context, it's not a huge sum of money. our revenue generating vertical at the moment is contributing 33%, which is the same if they would be contributing it to the Indian income tax. If we can give them the possibility and assurance that we will not be taking away their earnings from them, but helping them put their earnings into a good use with assuring that prosperity will be theirs for all times to come, not because of vested interest wanting something in return. This is where change of attitude and change of actions comes into play. And my own thought has always been, if 50% of revenue generated, not revenue generated, the profits generated, are given to the city services, 25% is given to encouraging either new projects or into development of further improvement in the existing activities and units. And another 25% reserved specifically for the contributing unit for their own development. I know that the cash flow and the profits don't go hand in hand. Okay? But over the years, these monies committed transparently instead of keeping in the banks. In both cases, whether it is foundation or financial services or it is commercial units, keeping these monies, this is not dynamic force. It's static. It is even discouraging your development. So, but where is the crux of the issue, according to me? And where I've been talking to most of the people that I know in the commercial activity, they do not trust the people who take their money and misuse it or abuse it. So if I'm creating a vertical, I give them the responsibility. This is what I want to also share with you when this presentation you see. Because the people who are involved in the activity have to take the responsibility at a certain level. And the rest of it has to be a straight line operation handled by people whom Mother gave a beautiful name. Organizer. We are executives, authority. We are the decision makers, authority. Some or the other, we are not able to get rid of this authority idea. We are not humble enough to accept that we are here to serve. Same thing we have done with very inspiring names Mother has given to either the activities or the places. We bring it down to our own vital mental level. Yeah. Portus for all, PTDC, PTPS. Lavinia the Auroville, Auroville's future, ATDC. What are we talking about? We are not even taking that inspiration from her and continue bringing it down to our own stupid levels. And we say, we are great.
Right.
For me, idea is, let's learn a little bit more humble. Let's stop telling the world what is good for them. Let's start working on the grassroots for ourselves in the right spirit, with all humility. And if we don't have enough, let's spend time in Matrimandir, in one of those petals, to learn what humility means. Ask yourself, am I humble enough? That is what Matrimandir is meant for.
Right.
Not meant for a tourism.
Right. If I may broaden this question a little bit beyond just Auroville, Sri Aurobindo talks about various stages of human progress in ideal of human unity, if I'm not wrong, about the objective age, subjective age, and then the hopefully going towards spiritual age. In the last 200 years or 300 years, perhaps, India skipped that progress. We were under somebody else's rule. So we did not go through that process of objective age and subjective age. And suddenly, now that we are free, are we going to reinvent the wheel, go through all the process, or can we directly go towards the spiritual age? And perhaps Auroville is that laboratory to see if we are ready. And the challenge perhaps is also that we are trying, because Mother gave us the direction, she laid out the plan for us. However, we are using the grammar of this subjective or objective age, which does not apply here. Hence the dissonance, if I may put it that way, that we are trying to achieve something based on certain other usual things, like you said, like the executiveship or the de facto ownership, or we say no money, but we put this blue sheet and we say there is no money now. I mean, are we living in a make-believe world ourselves? And how do we advent to a new age through this?
I think we broke one of the golden rules in development, is that you can't sidestep, you can't jump. You have to go through the whole development.
Path, yeah.
So if you try to jump too fast and you lose something, totally, you actually end up in a very bad situation.
Yeah.
And I would also like to add, that's one of the failures also, that if you compare countries and organizations who have managed a strong development, economic and socio-economic development, the main factor is inner contract between the people. It's in a country that you have a political leadership that managed to have a contract with the people that this development is it's a collective thing. If development is a collective thing, it actually works. Because any development takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of things you have to set aside. So only if that works, you are able to go through a strong socio-economic development. If you sidestep it too early, you will end up in somewhere difficult space, and you have to go back. It's a little bit like playing a Monopoly and any other game. You go back to start and then start from scratch again. Sometimes you compare development, not only economic, but all kinds of development, like when a small child is made 9 months in the mother's womb, nature has not made a way that it makes a modern baby from the start. It actually, in these 9 months, goes through the whole development from the lizard state to the fish state. It actually repeats the whole 1 billion years of process, and then it comes up with the same thing. I think development is more or less the same. You can speed up a development, because if you're not the first that goes through the phases, which India and Auroville is not, you can see where you should go, at least have a pointer, so you can do it faster. But the chances it is needed to go through A, B, C, and D, you have to repeat. But you can do it faster.
We can do it faster. The graduality we need to go through, but we can accelerate it at some level if we are aware where we are going, right?
If you see India now, I must say that it actually takes a pretty traditional development route, where inequality comes in very fast. India, the last 10 years, have become much more unequal, because that's part of the market economy, and it actually creates a lot of richness in certain places. And India has to face these things politically, because it becomes difficult. China for sure China was a planned communist economy. They sidestepped from that because they saw it did not work. Deng Xiaoping's famous word, it doesn't matter if the cat is black and white as long as it catches mice. So they choose a kind of complex economy where it was a pure capitalist economy. So India became extremely unequal, and that they have to face now. It's one of their big problems, how to face that, because it's not part of their social contract.
Right.
Any country has a social contract. Without that social contract, it does not work. Auroville also needs a social contract. That work is needed. You have to create the economic means to run this community. Prosperity is a beautiful thing. We all agree to it, and even the principle we agree. But you have to get the economic means to run that system. It's just words.
Okay. I have 3 important questions, if you may quickly reflect on it, and then we have a presentation, and I would like to have some Q&A also. The first of that is, The entire Keynesian model or all the Western models of economy is based on exploitation. And in the Industrial Revolution, they say there are three key things: communication, transportation, and energy. This is what has been renewed, or when these three things are fundamentally re-looked at, the new Industrial Revolution comes about, these three tenets. Communication with, say, telegram, after, then wire, then telephony, and then internet. Now, how do we look at this future economy where India right now is nicely at a pivotal stage? We have these three things in abundance. With the advent of this artificial intelligence, the communication or the media is not limited to a few. It has been totally democratized. And the energy, with reliance more on, say, solar and renewable energy, again, the oil-based economy maybe not really there, but yet on a downstream, so to speak. And then we have this transport, which again, with, you are saying even the wars have shifted right now because of oncoming of the drones and all. So how do you look at the future, which is based on these three things which are abundant? What is the necessity to ration? What is the necessity to look at demand and supply then? And then what are the challenges you think which is staring at us right now if we have to progress in a different way towards prosperity? Is it corruption? Is it, yesterday we talked about nepotism and a little bit appeasement in the Indian culture in that context. And you also spoke about tourism. Is, again, putting all these things into context, can that be a multiplier, or is that a constraint in itself? And then we will come back to Auroville, the notion of portus, the notion of no money in Auroville, the idea of no ownership but a stewardship, the idea of prosperity. How do we kind of look to at least have it in Auroville in some form, and will it help us achieve that if we know that this will help a larger context? It's not just for us. This is a model for the world.
Laksha, you're very nice. You want a short answer and then you come up with 200 different
It's
things.
not just three questions.
I think these are all details, tourism and the economy and money. There's a very famous book written about this issue. It's called The Bridge at the End of the World.
Bridge at the end of the world.
And it is actually that which Keynes also says, that you have to have a change of mind, what is important in life. The importance in life is literature, spirituality, art, and things like that.
Yes.
And that you can consume in immense amount without destroying the world. So it's a change of mind. And maybe if you ask if India has another route, I would say maybe, because India have other values where maybe the West in their search for economic development lost values. So maybe they have a route that is faster.
Yeah.
Because everybody in the world has to go to that bridge in the end of the world. Because economy as a continuous growth, I think even the most capitalist economies can see there's an end to it. It's not that. Economists are not stupid people. They might be bad masters, but they're good servants.
Yeah.
And I think they all see it. And I think everything comes down to a change of mind of what is important in life.
Beautiful. Pashiji, I think to add on to it, it's not about negating any idea, it's about synthesizing. This idea of West being a material world, how do we include it in the spiritual world?
You see, this creation of the divine, there's hardly any duplication at all. Individuals, collectively, yes, they're human beings, but each individual has an individuality. Even two leaves on a tree have individuality.
Yep.
So the diversity is essential component of this evolution.
Correct.
You cannot impose uniformity. What you can expect, a wisdom to find the right space for the right approach.
Yeah.
different countries through different circumstances have evolved to certain situations. And if exploitation, that has been the trend of the previous few centuries, was made to convert it into a positive support, the world would become a better place. And I think more and more people are coming to realization. Okay. But this is going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. In context of India, it is the same situation. There is a provincialism in us. There are many other aspects on religion and 101 things are there. At the moment, we are trying to prove to each other who's superior. Okay. There again, I draw my lesson from Matrimandir. I want to share it with you. There are 4 entrances. In the traditional way, we have named them Maheshwari, Mahasaraswati, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi. Mother made a life simpler for us for understanding it in our own language. Wisdom, knowledge, power and energy to manifest, and beauty and harmony that manifests. The mind, even the overmind, is based on intellect and knowledge, which has produced wonderful things, inventions and discoveries and so on and so forth. But what do we find? Those which were to benefit the humanity also had element of destroying the humanity. What was missing? Wisdom. Wisdom comes from another level. If this wisdom can be brought into play, and that cannot come intellectually, that is the spiritual aspect. That is the psychic aspect of our evolutionary process. And in this process, that wisdom can correct what is negative to the positive. Artificial intelligence also can be abused and misused. And most of the nations will do it to begin with. Our Chandrayaan is carrying an artificial intelligence. Tomorrow, how do you know it will not be misused and abused? So all these knowledges and all that are important evolutionary processes, part and parcel of the growth. But unless we also evolve at the same time intentionally, that is the purpose of Auroville.
Right.
To hasten the process of evolution.
Right.
And if we are ignoring this basic fact and we're creating another society like anybody else, but being different.
Yeah.
Okay. When we started, most of us were hippies. Flower children. Name any sect that was operating at that time was here. What did mother do? Put them to physical use. Sweat it out, buddies. Some of us grew out of it. Some of us are still living in the same world.
Right.
So I think there are lessons to be learned. I keep coming back to Auroville because for me, the choice is that this experiment will on its own, by its success, will deliver messages which will be adopted, not repeated in the same fashion, but adopted. There were words coined by Aurobindo, the mother, and we have always quoted them, but without understanding what it means. One is divine anarchy.
Yeah.
Few years back, a group formed in Auroville wanted to create divine anarchy. And intelligent people.
Yeah.
Divine anarchy is going to happen only when collectively this 50,000 people, even at their own pace, reach a point where transformation can take place, mutation can take place. Evolution doesn't happen just in one line. There are stages of mutation. This experiment is intended for that. The more we understand it deeper, the better it will be for us, because that is why I keep on saying this can only happen if you have humility.
Okay.
For me, I'm sorry to take into that direction rather than in an intellectual, analytical suggestion, because I'm here to work towards that.
Right. Beautiful. On that words, I would like to hear some questions also. Hans, anyone, if you have a question, please come here for it to be also recorded, if possible. You know, hasten towards wisdom, knowledge, power, and beauty.
Hi. Every time I had a question, you would answer it by continuing your talk. I think the one thing we could do more of is to have it up in the air more. For a good example is the Galaxy Plan. It's not up in the air. People are not talking about it. People are not aware of it. And if it would be up in the air more, I would be reminded myself of why I'm here. This reminding myself, the grammar, you spoke of the grammar, also in the past that people were more engaged in the collective, the beauty, the arts, the collective space. People would give themselves to that gladly, much more than their own lives, because when you are in the collective space happy, you belong to a place and you live for that and you grow for that. So I believe most of us have that inside us, that wish, but we are not in touch with it. There's a canyon there somewhere, and we don't have it enough in the air, up in the air. That, for example, the Galaxy Plan, yes, it can make you uncomfortable sometimes, but actually on a collective level it means much more art, much more beauty, much more energy. And I think we should work more on this, reminders of the language. Avenir is a good example, ATDC, Avenir. It should be out there all the time, talking about it, and we should give that a push also, because if you talk about economy and giving economy a push, I think the collective space, talking about or reading about it or seeing it in new forms in the social media and all that, to keep reminding ourselves of this. It was not a question, but because there's no energy in that. I don't see, okay, we have these panels of discussion which are very good, because it reminds me again and again, and if that's done often enough, then that can help the practical things to manifest, you know. Yeah.
Can I answer that?
Answer, yeah, you already said.
I can try
actually what you said already 2 or 3 times, you repeated it.
Okay.
The collective.
Thank you, Hans.
I think Auroville is very much a creative community, and that has that complexity that hard work is also much needed. I think even Einstein said that all his thinking is actually 10% inspiration or creativity, the rest is transpiration. And I think for most development, creativity is very important, but it's not everything. It's actually maybe only 10%. The rest is a collective sweating it out. And that we have not been very good at, I must say. We like the 10%, everybody likes the 10%, but the 90% actually sweating it out, which is you have to sacrifice something, you have to work, that's more difficult. So I think we have sidestepped or tried to go to the goal too fast.
I will just answer your specific reference to the Galaxy Plan. You see, today we talk about the Master Plan 2001, Perspective 2025. And one of the reasons of conflict in Auroville is whether it is 1999 Master Plan that we have approved, or it is the 2001 plan that has been gazetted as the approved one. Let me share with you, but there are 4 stages of the development of this master plan. Started with 1967, the first basic concept with reasonable details, which was modified to include Matrimandir in 1969. Then a more detailed master plan that came to be known as 1999, which was approved by the RA to create an Indian version according to the institution of town planners. That became the 2001 master plan, which would be recognized as a proper master plan document according to the institution and the governmental agencies. But this was not the end of it. Roger still continued to further develop it. And then came another master plan called 2004, the way forward. Master plans also evolve, they are not fixed. So in 2007, Roger prepared a note. It was also approved by the Resident Assembly that these are the aspects of this master plan which are non-negotiable. All the rest is subject to further development or reference to me. We have become so rigid in our thoughts that even on that we keep on arguing the day and night, not understanding the gist of it. You see, another aspect that has come into prominence, which many people don't seem to understand and realize, that if you look at the development Matrimandir and the master plan of Auroville, originally conceived, is based on exactly what Matrimandir is conceived on. Mother was managed to bring people round to our own way of thinking without even telling them how she's doing it. We keep on intellectually debating, arguing, and all sorts of things for the simple reason because it's easier. We can say our piece and go back and sleep peacefully. I've done my day's job. We are not prepared to labor.
Right.
I just want to come back to the transpiration part, that I think all of you have focused a lot about planning and discussing planning and never started any work. And I think I agree with Pashiji that this is a bit of a problem. You have to understand that most development is actually a bit messy. You cannot plan everything out. It comes with a huge amount of complexity. Auroville, when you plan, it comes with new people, their mindset, their changes, what do they want to do. You should make the best plan you can, but you have to throw yourself out in it because nothing comes as a full planned thing. It's not possible. Transpiration is very much more part of it than planning.
Thank you. All these things, 99% of the people don't know about what you speak of. This is what I meant. I think we were afraid to inform the community because of the amount of debates, and then people will immediately argue against it and resist. I'm talking about inspiring, getting us all inspired by it, not just informing and open to debate, but rather to show and inspire, because nobody knows. I'm glad you are here, Pashi, and other people, a few people, actually, not many, few people that I know that actually have this knowledge. I mean, I can find out myself in books, you know, but that's what I meant by bringing it up in the air, that we are all inspired, because it's not there. People don't know. Thank you.
The idea of festival and invocation is that to inspire twice a year, every 6 months, why we are here, you know.
So I have a question. What would be two suggestions of action from FMC for current Auroville economy? Action which could, as a collective, one can take, or collective can take. Is there any thought process which will make us leap into future which we all aspire knowingly and unknowingly?
I'm told we are far exceeded the timing, but if you can quickly respond to it. I have one more question there also.
I'm looking for a concrete action for Auroville economy, and what would be two action can be taken from FMC?
I think I understand. I'll answer first, and then you will answer more or less the same, I hope. I think there are two steps that has to be done. One is that prosperity has to come in some way. We don't have the money, so we have to generate the money. So we have to have a focus on how we can grow more income. I think the FMC right now has a lot of thinking about that we have to talk to all these units and have to push them into a kind of economic development. Without an economic development, means will not be there. But I think the two things are clear, that we have to move with prosperity whatever we can, and we have to find the funds to do that.
And to find those funds, we have to restructure ourselves into institutional developments rather than the present system of changing executives every 3 years or 5 years. It is not going to work. You have to have the verticals where people are committed, and if anybody is inefficient or creating problems, okay, out, the right person in. Because unless there is an institutional development, you cannot develop either an economy or a city or anything else that you want to develop. Even in a household, there is a discipline. A household, there is a meal is planned. For God's sake.
I just want to say that economy comes from a Greek word which is economia. It actually means household. So economy actually should not be more difficult than how to run a household.
Thank you. Well, we talked a lot about economic development many years ago, so I agree to everything what has been said, and you asked the important question, what could be the next actions? I always could not find an answer to the contradiction. If we establish our own prosperity system according to our ideals, but still based on sales to the outside economy. So we deal with the outside economy in the normal way, and inside we have our own economic system. But if we want to establish a model for the world, we could not act like a Christian monastery where they have an, let's say, non-alcohol policy, but earn their money with a flourishing liquor factory. So how do we overcome this contradiction between our own model and dealing with the outside world in the Western way, as you said? Ulrike.
I think Auroville is an open economy. It cannot be a closed economy, then it becomes a monastery where we will be self-supplying with anything. I think Tuan and I have worked a lot to change that concept, that we are not trying to be self-sufficient community. We just have to have the economy to function, that we can earn the money that is enough to run this community. It is open, which comes with its complexities, because it comes with decisions what we should work with and what we should not work with. But that should be part of integral yoga, I suppose.
Okay. Thank you very much, Torkil. Thank you, Pashiji, for coming and taking time out. We couldn't go through the presentation. Perhaps, I mean, how's the team? Would you, I mean, we can break now. Yeah? So, what we can, Rajiv, we are live right now, no? So, or how big is the presentation? Is it like 5 minutes, 15 minutes? So shall we take how is your logistics right now? Do you have time? We take a break and then do the presentation? Is that okay? No, you need to go. It's lunchtime now already. Pashiji, then we keep it for one more session, perhaps. Yeah? And can you 15 minutes? Okay, Pashiji, go through the presentation, 15 minutes, and then we will not discuss it anymore. And then he is available. If you have any question, one-to-one, we can have over coffee, tea, milk, boost, Bonvita, and all. So, thankfully, it's in English. So what I can do with the presentation, because of paucity of time, I can put the presentation in Aware website and send you the link along with the video link and share it in AuroNet and other spaces. Thank you very much, Pashiji. Thank you, Torkil. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And as I said, over coffee, we can discuss further. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.